Belarus is building up its military on Ukraine's border and bragging about the high combat readiness of its troops.
Here's a summary of the article.
Russian neighbor and ally Belarus said it is boosting its military presence along its border with Ukraine, with its president saying its troops are combat ready. Alexander Lukashenko called Ukraine an enemy in a recent speech and said his soldiers along Ukraine's border have a high combat readiness, according to a translation of his remarks by Ukrainian outlet Euromaidan. Thousands of Russian troops entered Ukraine from Belarus at the start of the invasion. Russia also launched ballistic missiles into Ukraine from Belarusian territory, and Russian bomber aircraft launched missiles at Ukraine from Belarus airspace. In response, Ukraine's State Border Guard Service said that all of Ukraine's activities near Belarus border were just defensive, Euromaidan reported. We expect a series of provocative statements by the top leadership of Russia and Belarus threatening Ukraine soon, the Ukrainian Security and Defense Council's Center for Countering Disinformation said. He said Belarus military would get eaten alive if it invaded Ukraine and said, the Belarusians have been very careful not to get their own troops involved.
This post received a score of 5,200, with an upvote ratio of 97%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Bet they learned combat readiness from the Russians.
Ready to get riggedy wrecked.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. RTCMS are bad for your health.
Ice cube enjoyer detected.
Opinion respected. Belarus defected. Potatoes infected.
Belarus isn't invading Ukraine any soon, but at the same time Ukraine have to keep, near the border, men and equipment. It's a very effective way to please Putin for Lukashenko with virtually a very low risk and budget.
For the first time since 2013, New Jersey residents are being treated to the city's biggest fireworks celebration this July 4th. The 10,000 free tickets Mayor Eric Adams was offering have all been claimed, but a number of venues from the High Line to Hudson Yards are selling fancy $100 plus tickets to their rooftop parties and viewing points. There are still plenty of places to take in the great views for free, no tickets required.
Greater than Moscow is also only 200 miles for the border of Belarus with no rivers or natural obstacles. In fact, there are 3 major highways going from Belarus to Moscow. Abrams tanks can go 45 miles per hour and have a 300-mile range. That means Moscow would only have about 4 hours to mount a defense before tank divisions were in Moscow. ?
Let this war go for a few more years and those tanks would be greeted in Moscow with cheers rather than opposition. Unfortunately, you underestimate the control that Russia has on its citizens, the media and brainwashing. So many believe that Putin is good and the West is evil.
Not hungry enough.
I think North Korea has proven that with enough propaganda hunger doesn't really matter.
It would be great if they turned on Lukashenko in a military coup.
That is the reason Lukashenko is unlikely to tell the troops to advance. He doesn't know in which direction they will advance. It's the reason why the security state in Belarus is larger than the actual military. Lukashenko has always known that the greatest threat to his rule would always be from within.
We are ready for the meat grinder.
We have too many young men. Odd flex, Belarus.
I think it's the perfect moment for the French Foreign Legion to go in and guard that border to free up more Ukrainians.
Isn't there already a NATO strategic reserve in Poland that could counter the potential columns moving towards Lviv?
Very unlikely that they would actively do that. That reserve would need to be put in place before anything happens as a tripwire, like how Macron was suggesting.
An appropriate response would be the deployment of NATO troops to the Belarusian border and yell out exactly the same thing. When the Russian soldiers from Wish go home, NATO troops go home.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.